Today we're going to review graphing ordered pairs. If you have graph paper at your house, you are welcome to use it, but I'm going to show you what you can do if you don't have any graph paper. So I'm not using graph paper today. And then I'm also going to use some colors. So you may want some colored pencils or markers or crayons if you have those at home to be able to color code some things. But again, both of those materials are totally optional. When we talk about ordered pairs, we are talking about graphing on what we call the coordinate plane. And when we graph on the coordinate plane is made up of two axes. So we're going to have one axis that runs side to side, and we call that the x-axis. We have a second axis that runs up and down. So it looks like this, and we call that the y-axis. And one way I heard that that I think helps you remember which one is which, the y-axis, that y has a tail that goes up and down just like your y-axis goes up and down. So that might help you remember that if you have a hard time keeping those apart. When we graph, we always start in the middle. So we start where they intersect right here, and that point is called the origin. When we move away from the origin, we're moving in either the positive or the negative direction. If we move to the right on the x-axis, that is positive movement. If we move to the left, we're going in the negative direction. On the y-axis, if we move up, we're going in the positive direction. If we move down from the origin, we're going in the negative direction. You can see your coordinate plane is split into four corners. So when we label those, we call them quadrants, and that just lets us kind of narrow our field and talk very specifically about a certain part. So we start in the top right. That's going to be our first quadrant, and we use Roman numerals to describe those usually. So we call this quadrant 1. A Roman numeral 1 looks just like the number 1. And then we move from here, we go counterclockwise, so opposite the way a clock goes. We have quadrant 2 in the top left. The Roman numeral 2 is 2 lines, count them 2. Then we keep going around. Quadrant 3 is the bottom left. 1, 2, 3 is Roman numeral 3. And then quadrant 4 is that bottom right one. And a 4 in Roman numerals, we write IV. So that's the setup of where we graph. The way we graph is we use an ordered pair, and an ordered pair is just going to be a fancy word for a point. So when we have an ordered pair, what we have is a pair of numbers. That's why we call it that, and we call it an ordered pair because the order matters. And the reason we care about the order is if we all use the same order, we can all describe the exact same point the exact same way. When we write an ordered pair, we write it in parentheses. You're going to have two values. You're going to have an x value and a y value, and we separate those with a comma to keep them apart so we don't get them jumbled together. The x and the y in your ordered pair correspond to the x and the y on your x-axis and your y-axis. So your x value is going to tell you how many to go to the left or to the right to move side to side. If that number, that x value, is a positive number, we go to the right. That's a positive sign right there. If it's negative, we go to the left. For our y value, if our y value is positive, we're moving along the y-axis, so we're talking up or down. So we would go up if it's positive and down if it's negative. It is important to remember we are always going to start at the origin. Every single point. We always go back. That's always our starting spot. I want you to label one more thing on your drawing. We're going to give the origin a specific ordered pair. We call the origin 0, 0. And the reason we call it 0, 0 is if we start there every time, we're not moving to the side at all. We're not moving up and down. So 0, because we didn't move side to side. 0, we didn't move up or down. And that's why we call that point 0, 0. So first thing we want to do is set up a space for us to graph. If you have graph paper, great time to use it. If you don't, I'm going to show you what you can do instead. So we just need to draw ourselves an XY axis. which means I'm going to draw my x-axis side to side and my y-axis up and down. They definitely don't need to be perfect. If you're a perfectionist, you can grab a ruler. That's also fine. And then I'm going to do a little bit of labeling. On graph paper, you have little grids that show you how to count, but on here, it helps us be a little bit neater if we just draw in some little tick marks ourselves. So I'm not going to draw a full grid, but instead what I'm going to do is just draw little lines along my axis to show me how I'm counting. So going to the right first, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes you might need more than 5. Sometimes you might need less. These numbers were small intentionally, so we didn't have to do too far out. And we're going to do that in every direction. We don't need them to be perfect again, but we do want them to be the same size-ish so that our graphing is consistent and really represents kind of the different numbers that we're graphing. If you need to pause here while you finish setting this up, this is a great time to pause your video. Make sure you have your graph set up and then pick back up in just a second. Push play again as we graph these points. So for our first point, we're going to graph, I've got them listed over to the side for you, -3, 4. I'm going to make some notes about how we knew which way to go. I would encourage you to do that at least for the first few examples. So if you ever get confused, you can come back to this. So my first number in here is a -3. And I'm going to look back up at my notes. We said that first number is an x, and it tells me if I should go to the right or to the left. It's -3, which tells me that I am going to go to the left 3 when I graph. And then I'm going to look at my second number. My second number is a +4, and that's in the y place, so that's trying to tell me how many to go up or down. Our notes, we wrote down positive for up, negative for down, so we are going to go up because it's a +4. We're going to go up 4. And again, we're always going to start at the origin. So I'm going to use my little laser pointer and show you how I'm counting. We said start at the origin, and I'm going to count to the left 3. Count 1, 2, 3 to the left, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where I'm going to put my point. That point I'm going to label so I know exactly which point it is. That was example A. I'm going to label it with an A, and that lets us talk about it very specifically. We all know exactly which point we're talking about if we say point A. Let's do another example. Point B says -2, 0. So my -2, again, tells me that first number is going to tell me, do I go to the left or to the right, and how many? It's a negative, so that's the left. We're in left 2. And then I look at my y value. My y coordinate is 0. So that tells me don't go up or down. Don't do anything. I'm just going to write 0. We're not moving up or down. So again, even with this new point, we're starting back at the origin. We're going to the left 2, and then I don't move up or down because there was a 0 there. So that point is right here. That's going to be point B. Let's do one more together. We've got point C is 4, -3. So I check out my x coordinate. That's a +4. So remember that first number tells us right or left, and it's positive, so that's going to be right 4. And then my second coordinate is a -3. Second number should tell you up or down. Since it's negative, we're going down 3. So from the middle, I count to the right 4 and down 3, and that's going to be where my point goes. I'm going to label that one point C. So I want you to pause your video and try D, E, and F on your own. I would suggest writing down which way you think you go, because then if that's where the mistake is, not with how you count it on your graph, it'll be easier for us to help you answer questions. So point D said -1, -2. So we should have gone to the left 1 and down 2. So that point D, check your work. would be right here. Point E said 2, 5. Those are both positive numbers. So my first number, 2, tells me to go to the right 2. Second number, 5, means up 5. So I start back in the middle again. Right 2, up 5 is going to be right up here in that first quadrant. Last example, 0, 1. So that 0 tells me don't go side to side. I'm just going to write a 0. And then just go up 1. So start in the middle. Don't go side to side. Up 1 would put point F right here. So hopefully this was a quick little review of graphing. This is a skill that we're going to use pretty much all year or all semester if you're in a semester class. So make sure if you have questions about it, you ask your teacher during a live session. But thank you for watching.